And today, what we are going to do is we're going to try to do a formal lesson on how do we help somebody as they walk through forgiveness, right? We started to do this last week. I had some technical difficulties. I think I'm just going to scrap last week. I'm going to try to do it all this week. And so what we're going to do things a little bit differently than how I started last week because, every once in a while I learned some things. But we had talked several weeks ago, I think this was around Thanksgiving when we went through this, about how there's this whole forgiveness framework, right? And we developed this chart on the board, and the chart's not as important today, or not the whole chart is not as important today. I would encourage you, if you need to, go back, watch the old lessons. If you need a chart, we'll get you a chart. We have those things, but we talked essentially about offenses that come to us that are small, medium, and large. And the small ones we called frustrations. The medium ones we called fails. And the large ones we called fouls, right? So when like somebody intentionally comes out to do something mean to you. And we had talked as we went through those lessons is that sometimes there is a difference between intent and impact. Okay, so there is an intent and impact. Now, I don't know about you. I am great at having minimal intent and maximum impact. I can say something, and to me, that's just sort of the way things are. Right? I can say, but like somehow that can be received in a very harsh way. And it's not my intent to come across harsh. I just have that talent. Right? Anybody else have the opposite? Anybody else try to come across real harsh and it doesn't come across? You know what, Jess, maybe you could help me with it. No, she's not in here, so I'm going to try to get away with this before she comes in. There's times where Trace will yell in our household. There's times. Yes? There's times that she would yell. And sometimes like the kids just don't even respond. Does anybody know what this is like? Moms, you've lost it, and then the kids just sort of look at you and almost chuckle. Right. So there was something that was intended to have like, you don't love me anymore. Like there was some dramatic thing and the kid just sort of smirked like, no big deal. Like I have the opposite of that. I have the opposite. I could say, well, maybe you're just dumb. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in some harsh way, but then like, oh, I can't believe dad called me dumb. Like, there's like, whatever, right? So what we need to understand is that there is a difference, and that difference matters to the person receiving, right? I look at Sarah and I think of her grandson Drew, and I'm sure I've told this story here before, but I came down to read a book for Sunlight, and Drew was in pre-K, and they put me in this little chair, and they bring all these kids around in front of me, and as they're coming around, I hear this little girl go, "Ow, Drew kicked me." And then Drew says, "I didn't kick you that hard." And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was, but it was like, I didn't try to kick you. I just like, you're making a big deal. What matters is the impact. What matters is the impact, right? Because there's things that happen to us that are so impactful. And that's where we are. So what happens is that we go through life and we have these encounters and we have these experiences, and what happens is we start to accumulate offenses. We start to accept these offenses that people do things to us, and sometimes they mean to, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they mean to, and like they don't do it well, and it doesn't matter. And you have this whole experience, this whole life of this stuff going on. And now you have this accumulation, and I'm just going to put it up here in tallies, right? So we have some tallies here. You have some tallies, whatever. You've got these things that have come up. And now maybe, and I believe this is week 18, 17 is not going to count, but I think this is week 18 that we have sat here and gone through this. And if you're anything like me, you realize I got quite a few tallies. Nobody has tallies. Okay, this is where I was hoping you would still be with me. So we have some tallies, right? We've got some things that we're working through, and you realize that I probably have more people to forgive than what I maybe I thought. Maybe there's more of this work that I need to do. And when we went through this, and we're going to get to this a little later, we talked about how there's some things in forgiveness that you just need to get over, right? There's some things, and those were the small ones. Those were the little things that, hey, just you can work through those. But there's other things, and we move up to the medium and the large side, that we talked about how it's a process, that there's a pathway that you have to go through, that there's steps, there's this ongoing act of forgiving that needs to happen until you get over it. And that may take a day, a week, a month, a year. It may take a lifetime. I don't know, right? It may take some significant amounts of time. And what happens is as you go through it, there's times that you get stuck, right? And getting stuck, like when we got as much snow. Has anybody been stuck in the snow? Yeah, dig out, right? And sometimes it's a little helpful if somebody comes along and maybe can help you dig out a little bit, right? That's the intent of what we are looking at. We'll see if the impact is there, right? We're talking about intent and impact. The intent is that we can look at this and we can say, okay, what's our role in coming alongside somebody who is dealing with baggage of offenses that they have accumulated over their life? That's where we are. And I think this is obvious, but I'm going to state the obvious, right? You cannot heal someone for them, right? You can want to, but you can't do it, right? I cannot make you heal. I can want you to heal. I can't make you heal. But what we can do is we can frame the process, we can protect the space, and we can keep pointing people to the next right step. And if we understand that, that puts us in a place where we can be helpful to the people around us, right? Now, as we come into this, it's not our job to be the fixer. Anybody here a recovering fixer? Something happens and you feel like you need to fix it? Yeah, right? Like I think we all deal with that. So it's not our job to fix it. It's not our job to minimize it, because you may hear stories, and I think I shared this story last week about, I had an adult come to Bible class. This is years ago. Some of you were in it, and said, hey, I need somebody to be praying for my cat. And I didn't think that was a real spiritual need. It is for some people, right? It's intent and impact, right? Somewhere there's a taste like chicken joke in there, but I'll leave that for you to figure out how that goes. So what we do need to do as a helper is we need to help frame the situation. And I think that for those of you that were here and understood that or took notes on that framework, you'll be able to say, hey, these are some of the things that you need to do. I think these are some of the directions that I could point you in. And I think I just know from my experience, there's times that you've had people give advice that was perhaps too much or not enough to deal with the different challenges that you face. I think it's also good as a helper that you're able to be a witness. And what I mean by witness is I mean that you're able to help people see the growth. You can basically hold a mirror up to them and say, you were really struggling with this a while ago. It doesn't seem like it's that bad. Or maybe it seems like it's worse, right? It's good to be able to measure that progress. So anyway, the first thing that we do as we work through this as a helper is we need to help them. Number one is to frame the impact. It's intent versus impact. Impact is what is important. If somebody has something that they need to forgive, what matters is the impact, because what that does is that tells us which of these different categories we need to go down. We need to go through the frustration. We need to go through the fail. We need to go through the foul. And that's where we start. And once we have the impact, then we can identify the category. Category. I think that's how you spell category. So that's where we figure out which one of these pathways we go down. Now, the next part is that we need to match the tool. Now, my grandfather was a carpenter, and there was a time where he took me on a project, and there's two parts to this lesson. But what he taught me that day is he said, Jess, any job is easy when you have the right tool. Is that true? There's a lot of jobs that are so much easier if you have the right tool. Like, so I'll give you this example. Josh will laugh at me on this one, but whenever I was a teenager, I was with my mom and dad at the coin shop. It had snowed all day. There was ice all over the cars. And what happened was it was early enough in the season that we didn't have ice scrapers in the car. Didn't have ice scrapers. Anybody ever found yourself in a situation like that? You didn't have the right tool. And so what I did is I found that we had an empty Coke can in the car. And so I took it out and I used the Coke can, and it chipped away the ice. It also scratched the windshield all up, which I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time, right? So like with the right tool, the job goes well. With the wrong tool, you can create a mess. You can create a mess. Now, I've also learned this, that there's some people that you can give the right tool to, that they don't have the skill to use the tool. We have a worship team up here. They all have tools that they use in leading us in worship. Now, I'm not going to speak for everybody out here, but I'm going to speak for most of us, in that most of us could be given some of these tools. I could give you the keyboard, and it ain't going to go well, right? So there's two parts. There's the right tool. There's also a competence that goes into using the tool. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we match the right tool. So the tool for these small offenses, right, for these frustrations, what we need to have is we need to have perspective and patience. I was sharing with you a moment ago, I think I'm coaching 3rd and 4th grade boys basketball. What I need, because what's happening in here, there's a lot of frustration that I deal with. I came home, was it Monday I came home in tears? I came home in tears Monday because like the kids were just so horrible. Trace laughed at me. So there's an intent and an impact lesson there, right? But like, yeah, well, I could feel her laughing at me, which is another joke, but that's an inside joke. There was one time Taryn was all upset about something, and my body reacted in a way where she knew I was laughing. I wasn't laughing verbally, but I was shaking because it was funny, and she got mad at me because she could feel me. I can feel you laughing at me. So anyway, but there's times where you need patience and perspective. And what happens is whenever I get frustrated coaching 3rd and 4th grade, you know what I lack? I lack patience and I lack perspective. And the day 1 million of indoor recess started to give me some perspective. So I decided we'll just let them run for an hour and then we'll get that. What we need to avoid doing when we're dealing with these small frustrations is we need to avoid over spiritualizing. Spiritualizing. You want to avoid over spiritualize. There is part of this, which this is, what are third and fourth graders? Are like 9, 10 years old, something like that, 8, 9, whatever ages they are. There is part of this which is being 8, 9, 10 years old. There is not part of this that means that they are spawn of demons, right? I could over spiritualize it and say, oh, like these are just demonic creatures that have been left in Cochranton to torment me, right? Like that's probably not the reality of what's happening here, right? So we need to avoid that. We need to have that framed the right way. Now, we talked about with fails, the tool that we need with fails is we need time and ministry. This is where we share our burdens with one another. Other people are praying for us, other people are praying with us to get through these particular things. Now, what we have to avoid is going too fast. We can't go too fast. Now, we probably all want to be through, we probably all have some burdens that we're dealing with that we wish we were through already, but like there's some of these things that are going to take some time to get through. For the fouls, these horrible things that have happened to us, the right tool for this is we need to have safe space and we need to be in the presence of God. And what we need to avoid is we need to avoid demanding closure. And again, that's a speed thing where you want it to be done now. It's going to take some time. The end result is that these different stages, these different things that happen, they require different care. Right? When you go to the doctor, you don't always get a shot. You don't always get a prescription, right? Sometimes you're told, drink a glass of water, sleep. Go home and sleep, right? You're told to rest. There's different things that you're given. So we need to be able to match the tool to the wound. The end result is that we will end up with maturity to heal frustration. We will end up with ministry to heal disappointment. And what we look for with the fouls is we look for miracles for the violation. So and for those of you that still have the chart, those should be somewhat connected to what we're looking at. So as we come along somebody who is dealing with frustration, we need to help figure out what's the impact, right? Based on the impact, what's the category? Based on the category, what's the tool? And then now the next thing that we do is we help somebody move without pushing. Move without pushing. Now, this is This is something that experience will help inform us how we do this, because I'm sure as you come along different people are going to move at different speeds, right? So what I want to do is I want to give you a couple of things to look for. I want to give you a couple things to look for that would say maybe you're pushing too hard. Maybe you're pushing too hard. You're pushing too hard if the person you're trying to help withdraws, they pull back. Maybe you're pushing too hard if the person that you're trying to help grows defensive. Or you may be pushing too hard if the person you're trying to help starts minimizing their own pain. Oh, it's really not that bad. It's really not that bad, right? Um, when you are helping them at the right speed, the other person will feel seen, they will gain clarity, and they will take small voluntary steps. There's a world of difference between voluntary and involuntary steps. Right? I mean, one of the early lessons that we did in this was the kids that are fighting, right? Kids that are fighting, hey, you need to go apologize, say you're sorry, right? Ask, will you forgive me? Sorry, right? Like, not voluntary, not voluntary, right? And what I want you to keep in mind about forgiveness is this, is that forgiveness isn't about speed. It's not about speed, it's about direction. And this isn't in my notes, but like we're studying Isaiah now here in service. When you look at world history through the lens of the Bible, by the time we get to Isaiah, there's been 3,500 years of sin, right? And Isaiah saying, hey, the Messiah's coming. Like the path for the path for forgiveness that took 4,000 years for Jesus to show up, right? So from the fall of man to the time of Jesus is about 4,000 years, as at least as I have counted through Scripture. You may find something different, but it wasn't. Forgiveness isn't necessarily fast, right? But what happened is that in that time, the direction was pointed, right? We looked at God shows us in that time that it's not just about being clean, right? He gives the whole world a bath with the flood in Noah. He gives the law with Moses, right? And like, hey, if you want to be if you want to be on my good side, God says these are the things that you have to do, and they can't do that, right? So what happens is they work through these different things and see. So forgiveness isn't about speed. Forgiveness is about direction, moving in that direction. Now I'm going to turn the board here because as we talk about this path of forgiveness, we talked about you can be going and and if you're going on a long trip, every once in a while you get tired, and sometimes you get tired and you'll sit down. And we talked about there's a number of different chairs that you can encounter as you're going this path of forgiveness. And it's not bad if you sit down, it's bad if you stay down, right? And so um, we had the chairs of betrayal. I think I had five of them. Um, there's the chair of blame. Guess I have four of them. Um, chair of being bypassed, and the chair of bitterness. As you go through this process of forgiveness, you will probably experience these different feelings, especially as you get to these medium and large size offenses. You'll realize as you're going through this pathway that you're saying, you know what, I was betrayed. You realize as you were going through this that you're going to want to blame somebody. I didn't ask for this. Has anybody ever said that? Have you ever, yeah, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I wouldn't want this. I wouldn't want anybody else to have this. Right? That's a place where it's a chair you can sit down. I didn't ask for this. Right? And this is where we need to have people that can come alongside us and say, hey, it's not an unrealistic thing to experience. But let's not stay there. Let's not stay there. I have a couple of scriptures here. We're going to have to betrayal. One of the things that we have to help people do with betrayal is we need to help people rebuild trust with God before they rebuild trust with people. Psalm 55, verses 12, 13, and 14. If an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of God as we walked about among the worshipers. This is a psalm of David, right? David felt that betrayal. Psalm 56, verse 3. Again, this is a psalm of David. He says, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. So as we go through these feelings of betrayal, we need to reconnect with God. And I'm going to turn this back over, right? We talked about when we get to these medium and large offenses, what you need is ministry. You need people that can come alongside you, be pointing you to God and pointing you to God and pointing you to God. And sometimes when you have these real big things that happen to you, you just need to be in the presence of God. You need to have your attention pointed that way. Second chair of blame. What we need is we need to help people release self-accusation and misplaced guilt. Romans 8:1. Paul writes, therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death. Right? Like these are things that we lose sight of. I don't know, maybe you don't. Maybe it's just me. But like there's times when you find yourself in these issues where you get mad at yourself. But have any of you close your eyes? Close your eyes. Have any of you spoken so harshly have any of you spoken so harshly to yourself, more harsh than what you would speak to somebody else? Raise your hand. Oh my goodness. Put your hands down. You can open your eyes. Pretty much every hand went up. Like we can be pretty mean. We can be pretty mean. And then the fact of the matter is you sit with that person all the time. Right? You sit with that person all the time. Again, remember what Paul, and I turned the page already. Romans 8, 1 and 2. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death. Paul's reminding us not to be quite so hard on ourselves. There's times that the offense happens where it's because people have overlooked me. There's this opportunity, there's whatever, and you've been overlooked, you've been bypassed. And the note that I have here is we have to help people separate being overlooked from being unvalued. I had somebody say it to me this way in the last couple of years. Um, when you understand how powerful God is, you can understand that He can hide your value from people He does not want you to be with. Think about that. That like, and I'm gonna put this in terms of a job, right? You have somebody who's looking for a new job. They find the listing. They would be perfect for this job. You know anybody like that? Anybody who, like, here's a job, I'd be perfect for this job. I've been preparing my whole life for this job. You go, you interview for that job. Maybe the interview goes really, really well, and then you get the word that somebody else is getting the job. And you can feel bypassed. You can be offended, right? But understand that God is so powerful. He is so powerful that though you may see that, hey, this is how it's supposed to go, God may say, no, no, that's not the plan. That's not the plan. And He can hide your value from certain people. In the same way, He can also show your value to some people, the people that may not recognize it. We just read a Psalm of David, right? The story of David. Samuel sent to anoint the next king. He goes to the house of Jesse. Jesse brings out his sons, and God says through Samuel, like, it ain't none of them. And Samuel says to Jesse, are there any other sons you have? And he's like, well, yeah, but he's kind of not worth it, right? Small, scrawny, whatever. God sees what's in, like, that's like, I just understand that that's the way, that's a way that God works. Sometimes we can be going through this path of forgiveness. It can take longer than we want. Like, bitterness shows up. And I don't know, I doubt any of you in this room have ever done this. You are all good, upstanding people, but I suspect you have seen somebody at some time throw a fit. Right? Seen somebody, probably not you, right? You wouldn't do something like that. But you've seen somebody throw a fit. That fit is because of bitterness. Right? So we know that people do this. people get bitter about things. And one of the things that we need to help people do is we need to help them see the cost of staying stuck. We have to help them. So while we have these different chairs, and you may come along and find somebody is seated in one of these chairs, and what you would like to do is grab a hold of the chair and pull it away and make them stand up. We cannot do that. That'll just create another offense. But what we can do is we can invite people to stand up. I have one more section here. We're going to go real quick through this. And then we're going to wrap up for today. What forgiveness help always includes. If you're going to help somebody through the process of forgiveness, what it will include is truth without cruelty. And as I stated before, I'm really good at messing up this intent and impact. I'm really good at saying something that perhaps is truthful, that could perhaps be heard in a cruel way. That is not my intent, but that is the impact that I could have. So what I've learned to do over the years is to say, hey, please understand that I'm going to say something, and I need you to understand that my heart is coming from this place. My words may not come across the right way. So I try to frame that in such a way. Now, maybe you don't have this issue, but I do. So I have to say, hey, please understand this. These are the words I need to share with you. Please know that these words come with no malice. Please understand that these words come with no judgment. This is me trying to be as objective as possible, right? This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm seeing. This is, that's where we are. So forgiveness, the helpers of forgiveness will always bring truth without cruelty. They will bring hope without pressure. They'll bring that encouragement. They'll bring that encouragement. They will bring grace without denying the hurt that exists. And what helpers will not bring is the expectation for immediate resolution. I will struggle with this one, but the note that I have here is that we should not bring emotional amnesia. We shouldn't be forgetful. I'm a little on that forgetful thing. Sometimes I need to be prompted a little bit. We should not excuse the sin, and we should not silence the pain. As we the closing line that I have for this is that we don't help people forgive by telling them what to do. We help people forgive by walking with them while God does the work. I'll say that again. You don't help people forgive by telling them what to do. You help people forgive by walking with them while God does the work. That is going to be our lesson here on helping people through forgiveness. I reserve the right to improve this lesson in the future. This is a first attempt. This has been a big topic. This has been a big topic. So I reserve the right to improve this somewhere down the road. Next week, it is my intent to be our last lesson on forgiveness. If you have other ideas that we need to look at in forgiveness, please share them with me. We can always add on. But next week, right now, I'm looking at this that we will be wrapping this up.